Today, I will be 100%ing Moonlighter 2 Early Access. I'll have to explore various dimensions, unlock every recipe for every weapon and armor set, discover every brand new relic, defeat every single boss, and along the way, as a shopkeeper, make as much money as possible. But yeah, if you guys can't tell already, I've been absolutely in love with roguelikes recently, and so when Moonlighter 2 reached out for a collaboration, I was ecstatic. So yeah, I'm super excited to be working with Moonlighter 2, and if this is a game that you guys think you'd be interested in, then feel free to check out the game in the description of this video. But now, let's go back to the very beginning of my plundering journey, the start of Moonlighter 2.
In a place as old as imagination lies the humble village of Rinoka. Will, a local merchant, took care of his family shop, but the shopkeeper dreamt about something more.
Something more.
The dungeons,
The world beyond.
forbidden mazes
Dungeons.
filled with riches and dangers. The curious merchant explored them, of course, but an uncanny truth was revealed when he opened the 5th dungeon. Those were no mere dungeons. Rinoka was connected to other dimensions. That's why he wanted them. Morlock, the interdimensional collector. Hope may seem lost, but beyond the gates, something is waiting.
And with that, we are thrown into the world of Moonlighter 2. We're given a broom and a backpack, and we're set off exploring some type of desert dimension. The game immediately throws you off in a little bit of a tutorial area, teaching you how to move, how to roll, and how to attack. And off the bat, I was kind of having some difficulty. I didn't really expect the camera angle to affect me as much as it did. But using our trusty broom, we're able to destroy some destructibles and get to the final area where we see one of the core mechanics of the game, relics. Not only will we be learning how to fight monsters and explore dimensions safely, but also how to manage our relics to sell back at home. But before we can even find and meet an enemy, we get an unsettling voice in our head telling us that they're here to help us. We pick up a potion, drink it, when all of a sudden we get jumped by multiple enemies surrounding us, and we're now told to run. Okay, for sure. Run. Let's get out of here. Oh, dolphin down. All of a sudden we find ourselves at a dead end where we find a pendant, and using this pendant allows us to go home safely, and thus completes the tutorial and brings us to our home village island place sanctuary thing. And with that, the intro is done, and thus starts Moonlighter 2. But even though the adventuring side of the tutorial is done, we still have this shopkeeping aspect. As we enter our beautiful humble abode, we're given a quick tutorial on how our shop works. Mainly, there's a couple of components at how this shop part of the game actually functions. Mainly, after you loot some relics from your dimensions in your travels, you can sell them for a specific price, and depending on how customers feel, they will buy it. And the reason why we need money is because we need money to fund our adventures. The problem is, though, you don't know how much money customers are willing to pay. Your job is to figure that out. Come on. That's perfect. Oh, go, whoa. All right. It's expensive. I got you. Guys, I'm sorry. This is cheap? No! So yeah, selling and being a merchant is a little bit harder than I thought. But no matter, as we continue the plot and talk to our friend. But later that night, we get a voice in our heads. Our paths are about to cross. Well, you okay? Be ready. What is that? Come to me, merchant. What? God is a cube. We can't fathom his real form. Traitor, come to me. Oh? We finally meet. I'm the Endless Vault. Heed my words. Make your goods worthy and your trades bold, so you can make 10 bands. If your success is your fate, I will open my gates and your treasure awaits. Okay, let's do it. And with that, the stage is set and our goals are given to first make 10,000 doubloons for some type of treasure. And so we set off onto our first expedition. But before we do that, we're given the ability to get a little bit of a free weapon. We can pick one of 4: a dagger, a sword, a spear, or gauntlets. And of course, as a former boxer, I picked the gauntlets. And so we head off on our first expedition to the Kalina realm. In here is a desert-like planet with desert-like relics, which you'll see momentarily. Like other roguelikes, you can pick the destination of where you want to go, and along the way you can find some power-ups to make your runs a little bit easier. But before we find the treasure, we gotta fight some enemies. Dude, this is fire. Look at my After we complete the level, at the very end, we can find ourselves a chest. And here's what's really cool about every single dimension. The relics, or the loot in each dimension, each also have their own unique effect. And in Kalina, relics have burn and armor effects. Now, these don't sound complicated at first, but as we go on with the limited space that we have in our backpack, these effects will be much more important. But for now, we continue and press on. As we continue to fight more bug-like enemies, at the end of this level in particular, we're able to get our first perk, a fire perk. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, runs are roguelike runs. And with that are these roguelike perk upgrades. You can choose whether to upgrade your main attack or your gun, which we'll get into in a bit. But for now, in a very basic run, we continue our way making through and completing levels and filling up our backpack with different types of loot. The loot, or the relics in this case, have different levels of rarity, but not only that, value. And on top of that, they have effects that can either increase value, destroy other items. But for now, let's keep things simple and just continue on and really go into the relic process. On one of the levels that I completed, I was able to get a blue/rare relic, which had the ability of burning all of the common ones in a specific row. Well, why would you want to burn and destroy all your relics, Adrian? That doesn't make any sense. Well, if you do it, the value of the relic also goes up. And with that relic in my bag, I thought maybe it's time to actually sell this bad boy. And so I went back home to set up some shop. And turns out the mercantile process is a little bit more harder than I expected. All right, I want to sell this really expensive one. Let's sell it for 1,000. Actually, maybe 2,000. Is this too expensive? All right, I got you. How is it too expensive? Be so for real right now. All right, how about for 1,000? All right, I'll do half the price. This one's good. Okay, finally, customer, 15 bucks. How is this too expensive? I get it. Oh my, okay, hold on, 500. That's cheap. Dude, we're making some money. Why does no one want this, by the way? Yeah, 400 bucks. Yes, he bought it. It's a little pricey, but he bought it. We made 3,000 bucks or something. I don't know, something like that. And with that, the capitalist in me was hooked. I had to go get more relics to make more money now. The first thing I decided to do was flaunt my wealth. I decided to talk to every single person in the city and try to also pick up some extra side quests and also look at the various upgrades we can get. There's various skill trees, there's various furnitures that you can use to help increase the value of your items. But the biggest thing was just getting back into the field to get more money. And so we make our next expedition. We go back into Kalina collecting as much relics as possible. But here's the thing, the game's kind of hard. The thing is, like every roguelike, our combat is kind of limited at first. Yes, we're doing some decent damage, but we don't really have healing capabilities. And unfortunately, on this run, I suffered my first death. I died. Damn, that was hard. Whenever you die in combat, all of the relics that you have in your inventory get sliced in half, value-wise. But still, we're able to go back home and just sell them all in the shop, just at a little bit of a lower value, right? But still, we're still making some money, still money and funding that we can use to, you know, funnel into upgrades. But still, we have to go back into the field because the best upgrades are the ones that probably cost more, huh? While here, we kill another enemy with our gun and get ourselves another juicy achievement. But as I was continuing my brand new run and collecting more relics, I encountered something that I was just simply not prepared for. Our first mini boss. A boss. It's at this point in the run when I realized I need way more upgrades. We're taking way too much damage. Even if I was going for all weapon upgrades instead of treasure, I was taking so much damage with no healing capabilities that there was no way that I could continue. And so it was back to the drawing board and back home. I decided to go ahead and sell the relics that I got for the day. And in return, I was able to find all of the price points for one of the relics. As I was slowly selling the same relics over and over again, I started to figure out what are the prices that people like? What do they consider cheap, fair, and expensive? And that, my friends, is going to be very key later on. We end the day making 300 bucks, and now our total net worth is $1,200. Far away from any upgrade we can afford yet. But for now, we go back into Kalina with our one goal in mind, which is to defeat the first mini-boss. And in this run in particular, I was lucky enough to have just enough HP and just enough combat awareness to barely defeat the first mini-boss of Kalina. There we go. Finally. Broken Mike, my first boss. But let me tell you, inside, the loot wasn't even that extravagant. However, we did get our first armor recipe, the Scarabastian armor set, which is going to be very essential later on. But with us being so unbelievably weak, I decided to return back home before losing all of our relics' value. It is very clear that we need an upgrade to something, anything. And so I went to the weapons drawing board. I went ahead and picked up one of each weapon just to see if I can maybe like one of them more. In doing so, we got ourselves ourselves another achievement, and thus starts testing out different weapons and combat styles. Along the adventure, I was able to get another achievement for killing multiple enemies, but also started to get way more familiarized with our backpack. At this point in the game, I unlocked an extra backpack slot, allowing us to get more loot per trip, but also learning how to maximize the total value of all the relics in my backpack. Like I mentioned before, in Kalina, these relics have a burn and armor ability, and depending on how you stack these abilities, you can artificially increase the value of some relics. And so on one of my ventures, I decided to leave home early, as these were the best relics I've ever gotten on a trip. And so I spent all day in the shop testing out brand new prices, trying to find the perfect price point. All right, 700. I'll do 700 for it. Come on, that's a good deal. Oh, that's a good deal. 2640. Beautiful. Oh. So this is 700 and this one's 600. They're the same item, but come on. Yes. And finally, after that successful venture and a successful selling day, we made a total of $6,500, bringing our total net worth to past 10K, hitting the first milestone of the Endless Vault. And such, we are rewarded. What's that? Come, the vault is open, your treasure awaits. Ooh, Merchant Grimoire, rare book of spells. Now I gotta earn 50K. Complete the first challenge. And now with that, we finally have a sizable chunk of change to go ahead and upgrade one of our weapons, which I chose the large sword. But now we have access to a brand new dimension, the gallery. And so for our first mission, we explore the exhibition wing, where we meet the curator. Some guy that kind of reminds me of that one guy from Avatar. It's like a bunch of robot enemies. Okay, this area is really hard, but new loot. I want to see this. So as I mentioned before, every single brand new dimension has their own type of relic trick. And in here, unlike Kalina, which is burning, this one is shocking and overcharge. Shocking a relic can invoke effects, but also increase the inherent value of the relic. However, if you shock an overcharged relic, it will actually destroy it, but there's some effects that you can use to manipulate the value of every relic. Unlike Kalina, the enemies in here are, I think, a little bit more simpler. They're a lot more electricity based, but the big thing is that later down the line, when we need more money, this is actually the exact place we're going to go to exploit money, because there is some insanely overpowered relics here. But as I learn how the shocking values stuff like works in this dimension, it's still taking a little bit to get used to. When I went home, I was presented with a cutscene. Well, what's happening? Rhinoka, home of the goats. Gates. Wait, this is our home planet? Moloch, who's there? I wasn't expecting visitors. This is the final boss. Look at you, sitting in your stupid chair. It's not even a chair. How'd you get here? This is not your land anymore. I think your pendant malfunctioned. Truly impressed by these dungeons of yours, little merchant. They're profitable. I'm sick of this guy. Meet Moloch for the first time. Wrong home. That was Moloch, the collector of all of the various dimensions that we need to build up our wealth to hopefully defeat one day. But for now, with the funds that we have, we go ahead and start upgrading our skill tree. I'm gonna buy whatever I can, you know? Any upgrade is a good upgrade. Helps in the longevity run. And even though funds were tight right now, we continue selling in our shop as fast as possible because, you know, the more money we make, the more upgrades we get, which means we can make more money to get more upgrades, to make more wait a minute. So at this point, I was kind of realizing that there was a bottleneck in my plan. I'm not making as much money as I needed to unlock more skills to continue my runs, because at this point, the furthest we've ever gotten was midway through the run. You know, my damage wasn't scaling fast enough. I was taking too much damage, but that all changed when I pick up a brand new furniture item, the tip jar. This was my first step into making way more money than possible. But however, in this run in particular, not only did I get the tip jar, I was able to finally reach the boss of Kalina for the very, very first time. Introducing the Herald, a laser explosion bomb fest boss of Kalina. This was one of two bosses in Kalina, and this guy was an absolute battle of attrition. You essentially have to wait him out and dodge all of his attacks to try and strike his weak points, but also he'll start summoning a bunch of enemies, and at this point in the game, I was just simply too weak. I didn't know how to fight effectively, so I went back home to try and sell as many relics as possible to try and get more upgrades. And with us finally getting more familiar with the shop pricing of specific relics, how to maximize our bag's efficiency, I was able to start making a little bit more than 3,000 a day, and instead had my biggest day ever. Thank you. I got $10,000 now. Dude, we're raking it in. You're not gonna get anywhere else. $14,000. Oh my God, we're gonna retire so fast. And now with a steady flow of cash coming in, we start investing into our skills, mainly in onsen room. Now, at the end of every run, we're able to go into the onsen to heal before a boss. And I also decided to invest in a brand new armor set to scare a bastion, allowing us to take 2 free hits from a boss fight, making our survivability way more higher now. And so my daily routine for the next couple of runs was to go loot, get as many relics as possible, sell as much as possible, and now we're hitting about the $26,000 mark out of the 50K next goal. But also also we started getting some more decorations. At this point I was about 10 to 20 runs in average, and I've kind of gotten used to the combat of the game. I was running the great sword instead of the boxing fists now, and the larger damage was starting to make these levels a little bit more easier. I was able to defeat the mini boss in the gallery for the first time, getting us a brand new armor recipe, and after healing at the onsen, we make our way to the first time I ever met the boss of the gallery, the curator. Right, we're playing Tetris. The curator. The curator was our first more challenging boss. Unlike Kalina, where it's a battle of attrition, even though I ran away from that fight, this time it kind of felt possible. With my current run and having almost full HP and a stronger weapon compared to before, I felt like it was actually possible to defeat the curator. My current strategy was to hit hard, run away, recharge, and wait for him to attack. And with that, we're able to get him down to his next phase. During his phase, we have to smack him with our backpack to try and take down his force field. And although this part was easy, things will slowly escalate faster than I realized. On top of adding lasers to the fight, the curator also starts adding in shockwaves and more force fields. And on top of that, in the third phase, there was just unbelievably way too many things going on that even though I was almost one hit from defeating it, we unfortunately lost. No! No! We literally almost won. I think we were one hit away. That's a fun boss fight. And I'm gonna cry now. But with every failed run comes a next more successful run, more often than not. We're able to get a brand new NPC who gives us upgrades for our brand new guns. But I'm not really gonna touch the gun upgrades because there's something more important afoot. Money. I'm somewhat of an entrepreneur myself. With us getting another achievement of making some more perfect sales, as well as finally decorating our shop, things, although not on the combat side, but rather the mercantile side, was starting to look up. And with another day of successful sailing at making almost $10,000, we're able to finally unlock the next reward of the Endless Vault at making $50,000, and that was a huge reward. The unlock of the Onyx Cauldron, giving us extra recipes for getting more healing items, more potions, and having those potions become stronger. This not only gives us a brand new set of upgrades, but also unlocks a brand new dimension for us to explore, Aeolia. But before going to a brand new dimension, we end up walking around and meet Julian, who sells us one of the most important upgrades in the game in my opinion, patches. I picked 2 patches that will increase our damage and our defenses up. And now, this is the start of actually starting to finally be able to win runs. And now, equipped with glimmering confidence, we end up going off into Aeolia, specifically the Zephyr Fields. Upon entering Aeolia, this place was a fantasy land. The relics in this place were also really cool, unlike the other places, and in fact, probably had the best gimmick of all. But Aeolia was filled with like flying fairies, witches, and it was just overall beautiful. But the relic effect was very strange. It involved petrifying items as well as absorbing items. Depending on the type of item you petrify or absorb, you can increase the inherent value and the rarity of that relic. And you could just keep on going from there as long as you can petrify and absorb as much as possible. It sounds very simple, right, as I'm saying it, but this was the most complicated relic effect so far. Despite this area seeming like it would be the most profitable and we could still kind of survive in this area, like our damage seems to be doing okay, I immediately went to the mini boss and basically just got one shot. What the fuck? And so our first trip to Aeolia was kind of a failure. However, we could still actually make a decent amount of money. So we go back home to our shop and we pet our little bloblet for an achievement, and now began our mercantile grind. We weren't really making a lot of progress outside of, clearing more areas. However, with all of the money, all the scraps I was getting, I was slowly expanding my backpack slots. I was slowly going back into the field, scouring whatever I can get, whatever I can muster to sell at a decent price. And through my honest efforts, I was able to slowly upgrade our shops, increase our stands, give them extra display values, and slowly, ever so slowly, I was crawling out of that 7k per day to maybe 12k to 15k per day. I also started unlocking shop perks, allowing us to get more money, more value out of the relics we sell depending on how much experience and how many sales we make in that day. And slowly, ever so slowly, I got a full extra row in my backpack and started getting way more upgrades for more survivability, as well as getting better relics in my runs. And with that being said, let's fast forward to my next run, where number 1, I was able to get an achievement for opening over 100 chests at this point, but mainly the achievement for finally defeating our first official boss. I'd say 30 runs in finally, we're able to get a strong enough build using the boxing gloves, which are now my favorite weapon, to defeat the curator. This weapon is overpowered. And with our first boss being defeated, we get access to a brand new material, a quantum core, as well as 2 little chests for, making our journey worth more while and also for selling. But here's the thing where the game, it kind of starts snowballing a little bit faster. Because we were able to complete a full complete run and get the best relics out of that as possible, on my next shopkeeping day, I was able to make the most money I have ever made in my life. Oh my god, wait. $40,000. And because of that single successful boss run, we also get an upgrade called the Luminous Pendant, giving us better loot in our loot pool, meaning that we can now get money faster. And with getting more money faster, we can get more stronger faster. So the first thing I started doing is reinvesting that money into making a run go longer. I learned that if we're able to actually defeat a boss and complete the run and thus get way better loot, well, with that in mind, we're just going to get more money, which we can use to buy more perks, and it'll just be an infinite cycle at this point. Finally, I'm able to tip the snowball in our favor and actually have a snowball effect in gathering more loot. But here's the thing I didn't realize. If you defeat the boss in the first area of the gallery, there's a second area that pops up. You get access to something called the treasury halls. In here, we're able to find one of our friends locked up in a glass cage, but also with our brand new upgrade, we get a starting perk pedestal. And although this is my first run in the treasury halls where all the enemies are way stronger, it was actually much more easier. In this run, we're starting to get way better chests. Instead of it being green or blue chests, we started to get more purple and epic chests. And on our first run in the treasury halls, we're actually able to reach the final boss of the gallery, and it is Tikeke. Tikeke was an absolute projectile beast. Playing volleyball with you, you had to time your parries just right, and if you don't, you take an insane amount of damage. And in my first encounter fighting him, I decided it was way better to just retreat home, take the loot that I've got, because this was the most bountiful harvest I've ever had ever. But also, with the brand new money I made, I decided to expand my shop. Now we have an entire extra floor for extra displays, also allowing us to get extra furniture on the floor. This will, in theory, allow us to sell not only just more items, but also make their value increase. Not only does a item have its inherent rarity and its inherent regular price, but also the higher the value of the item, the more popular the item, you can sell it for more. And if you stack that with specific furnitures, or if you stack that with specific display cases, an item that might cost, let's say, $1,000 might end up selling for $30,000 depending on the day, the furniture, and where it's placed in your map. And at the end of our first day, coming back with a brand new set of loot, we're able to close the day making close to $50,000 in sales, with also 20% of that figure just coming from one singular relic for selling over 10,000 gold at a time, giving us another achievement. But later that night, I decided to upgrade more of my shop services, unlocking an extra perk slot. With this, we also unlock a brand new customer called the Rich Customer, who's able to kind of sell at a decent price, but a little bit more. But the idea that I'm trying to get at is we are steamrolling progress right now. Along the journeys, I started buying up the extra recipes that we were finding in our expeditions. It's not enough to just find the recipe out in the field. You actually have to buy the recipe and then place it in your home. And so I decided to retrace my tracks a little bit. Maybe instead of going into the second level of the gallery, let's go back into the first level of Aeolia and try to actually beat the first boss, Senda, the Prince of the Zephyr Fields. And this guy was rough. Not only were we flying and fighting in the skies, but he had multiple spinning projectiles that would do passive damage onto you, and you had to play extremely smart. My strategy of just going in and just smacking wasn't really working anymore. I had to play smart as possible, or else I was going to risk taking too much damage. Upon getting Senda into his second phase, he ends up cutting the arena and absolutely goes ham on you. And despite feeling like I was the strongest I've ever been, I unfortunately failed this fight. At this point in the game, Senda was just way too strong, and I did not want to risk the possibilities of just having more money and just selling it for better upgrades, and so I decided to do a tactical retreat. After selling all of my goods for the day, I was able to clock out with an easy, relaxed $32,000. And with those funds, I decided to start upgrading my armor and my weapons. And now, with our brand new set of upgrades, weapons, armor, our average run was looking more successful than ever. We're able to safely make it to at least past the first mini boss, and also I was starting to learn how to actually use the perk pedestals to their full potential. Right now, the current build that I'm running in this run is a heavy/thunder build, allowing me to proc my thunder effect almost every single time on every single enemy on the field. And upon returning home that day, I was able to crush the $200,000 goal to complete the next Endless Vault challenge, thus giving us the Burning Hammer, which in turn gives us more weapon upgrades and stronger weapon upgrades. And now the Endless Vault tells us that we need to make 500,000 gold to get the next reward. At this point in the game, I started unlocking a bunch of extra weapon recipes. Just along the way, you're able to just get these recipes from either defeating bosses or just doing some side quests. The thing is though, I was so in love with my current fist weapons that I didn't really care about these other weapons. As long as I unlocked them, I think that would be good enough. And so instead, I started worrying about getting some more patches. Notably, a reroll dice patch, allowing us to reroll some of the perk pedestals or treasures in a room, and also the beating boost patch, allowing us to regenerate a slight amount of HP as soon as we enter a room. And last but not least, the biggest upgrade we made was upgrading our shop the final time that we can. We now have an extra floor in our base, allowing us to place 4 more items and relics onto the field, and also giving us more decorations to make sure that our relics are selling for the most as possible. And with a bunch of bosses ahead of us, more upgrades than I could ever see possible, the possibilities of making $500,000 in a singular day maybe being tangible, I was so unbelievably excited to keep going until I was slapped in the face with this.
Wait,
You have completed the final Endless Vault challenge in early access. Oh, cool. But there's just still so much to do. Right on schedule. Sorry for the interruption. I took the pleasure of forcing you to pay me a little visit. I really value your company, but I just wanted to ask, do the words Endless Vault ring a bell to you? He kind of reminds me of Jack, Handsome Jack. It's supposed to be in the dungeons, but it's nowhere found. It made me think, maybe the merchant knows something, and maybe he's hiding it. What are you gonna do about it, dude? Until next time, friend. I just want to go on a journey. Oh, the credits. Wait, I want more. Like, actually, despite seeing the end credits of the early access, we still had a couple more achievements to get and also a couple of personal goals I still wanted to fulfill. Yes, even though the full content of the game is not out yet, I still wanted to get everything that I possibly can. And so we go back into the portal. The first thing I wanted to do was actually defeat every single boss. There was 5 left remaining and I only killed the curator at this point. So the first thing I decided to do is go back into Kalina. Maybe I can actually kill the first boss you're meant to kill. In this run in particular, I wasn't really worried about getting relics. Instead, I was worried about getting perk pedestals and increasing my combat capabilities. Right now, my favorite weapon to rock was the boxing gloves. I was smacking around super fast, and I was working on getting a frost build to inflict frost effects. Compared to before, when I was actually worried about making money and getting treasure, I wasn't really focusing on increasing my combat output for the run. But things were different. I was out for revenge, and so because of that, we're able to build kind of a build that does this amount of damage. But also while exploring Kalina, I ended up finding an alternative route, a little secret. And upon walking over, you're able to find a little portal that actually teleports you into kind of a labyrinth of like platforming challenges, and at the very end get an extra recipe. But like I said, I'm not really worried about that. I'm more so worried about killing the Herald as fast as possible. This guy, I needed to get my revenge on this guy, the first boss of Kalina, and who am I to actually say that I beat the game without defeating this guy? And finally, with the build that I rocked this entire run, I was getting so unbelievably close with the amount of damage we were doing. But still, at the very end, I needed one more hit. Finally, this boss is dead. Oh my god. With the death of the first boss in Kalina, we make our way slowly, ever so slowly, to defeating every single boss. Back at home, we end up getting a brand new recipe for a brand new boxing glove recipe, a Sun and Moon Ballad weapon. And although it's not going to be strong now, this was something I knew that I needed to upgrade as soon as possible. But with the first level of Kalina being done, we end up going into the next area, which is actually Kalina at nighttime. In here, the little enemies are actually way stronger than before. A lot more projectiles, a lot more flying around, but still, with our combat upgrades and what we've already learned, it was relatively easy to adjust, as we were not going for relics anymore. We were going for straight perk pedestals. And so on my first run, I was able to successfully make our way to the boss of the Night Realm of Kalina. And in here was probably the strongest and most hard boss fight in the game so far for me, the Lamb. I don't know what the devs were thinking of when they decided to juice this guy up with the most insane dashes and punching abilities. The Lamb is, I think, one of the hardest bosses for me personally. This guy is shooting out shockwaves everywhere, making sure you're on your tippy toes every single time. If I didn't have the boxing gloves where I was able to, you know, smack as super fast as possible, but also have enough time to dodge, I don't know if I'm able to actually hit him a single time without freaking out and clenching my butt every time. On top of that, this guy has just insane explosions and insane damage capabilities, like the ability to shoot fire as well as, you know, smacking down on the entire ground. But yeah, this guy, I don't know what was happening. I don't know if I was actually gonna ever to defeat him, but unfortunately, I lost my first ever encounter with him. But the thing is, we come back a second time. This time on my run, I had a frost build going against the fight into the Lamb. Depending on the build that you come with, you're either able to do a lot of damage up front or do a little bit lower damage slowly over time. And with the frostbite build that I was building up, I opted to go with a frostbite build because if you're able to inflict frostbite, then slowly over time, as I mentioned, you're able to slowly decrease his HP. And with this build, I actually defeated the Lamb, or so I thought. That was so hard. My ass was, I went through all my potions. No way. No way. No. There's no way. There's no way. What the fuck? I know. I got him. Oh my god, I got him. With the surprise of a second win, we unfortunately actually survived that ordeal despite being traumatized, unlocking a brand new material called the Alabaster Candle, as well as unlocking a bunch of extra loot that we can take home to sell. But right now, money isn't really my primary issue. I actually needed to get materials. If you went ahead and looked at like the amount of weapons I have, I only still had the first tier of weapons. I only still had that. Yes, I unlocked the brand new one, the Sun and Moon Ballad, and some of the weapons on the bottom, but the reason why I'm not unlocking all of these other ones is because some of them are locked behind materials materials that are dropped by bosses. So yes, I could go ahead and make more money every single day, maybe make 100k gold in a single day, but there's no point if I can't spend that gold without the materials for that upgrade. However, that doesn't really actually stop me from making money, because that following day I was able to make over 100k in gold. We were balling, baby. So I decided to go ahead and clean up my boss list once again, going back to the Zephyr Fields to fight the boss that we failed to defeat the first time, Senda. And this time, armed with a fully complete perk combat build, instead of going for relics this time, we were able to dish out insane amounts of damage using boxing gloves, but also using our gun. I was a really big fan of just using the regular gun and also a thunder build or an ice build or a foam build. And in this run in particular, we're able to do a ton of damage up close, but also deal slow damage over time far away, until finally we're able to defeat Senda, the first boss in Aeolia, giving us a brand new material called the King's Left Mask. We now only had 2 more bosses to defeat, the other boss in Aeolia and Tikeke from the treasury halls in the gallery area. And luckily for us, since we're not going for loot, we can just go straight for pedestal combat accessories. And so here comes my rematch back with Tikeke. As I mentioned before, Tikeke is an insanely projectile laser heavy boss, capable of doing a ton of damage if you play it way too long. But with the upgrades that we've been getting, I was starting to take way less damage, and I mean way less. Enough to actually being able to just tank his attacks straight up. But here's the problem. He's still able to actually maintain a specific amount of damage resistance if you're actually not able to deal amount of damage at a specific time. If you're not parrying his attacks, he'll just continuously keep throwing those attacks at you. So you kind of have to play a little game of volleyball with him. The thing is, with me though, I got way better at the game. And with that being said, I'm able to snipe him out of the sky with my build. He was simply beautiful. I got him. And with that, we unlock a brand new boss material called the Broken Rocket. And with a ton of loot here, we're able to go back home and eventually sell that. But like I said, my goals were still on the bosses. And so I immediately went back into Aeolia, into the last area that we haven't defeated yet, the Howling Harbor. This area was like a raining Zephyr Fields, much more intense enemies. However, nothing that we really can't handle. We've gotten so much stronger in this game. And with us now worrying about our mercantile adventures, with us focusing on combat, we're able to take down the mini boss and head straight into the final boss. And probably, I would consider this my favorite boss in all of Moonlighter 2. Monty. I'm gonna say it right now, Monty reminds me of the Nameless King, a lord flying in the skies with his mount, summoning lightning at us in the hardest, well, not for me, but the fight goes hard. Monty is a ruthless boss fight, and with every other phase, he starts shooting out other like godly stingrays from the sky, as well as pushing a field of swords at you. This boss was an absolute spectacle and an insane battle. I loved the aesthetic of this boss. But at this point, we fought in bugs, robots, humanoid enemies. What is a god of the sky going to do with us?
The ice is killing him.
Take it! Boom! Defeat Monty. Sweet petrichor achievement.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
The King's Right Mask. And with that, we have successfully defeated every single boss in Moonlighter 2's early access, but that doesn't mean we're done with the game yet. There's still so many more things that I wanted to do, including collecting every relic that we can possibly sell. But before doing my personal goals, let's also knock out a couple of the extra Steam achievements I haven't done yet. The first one is to defeat a boss with the starting broom item that you have. And luckily for us, this was actually really easy if you focus on getting combat upgrades. And I also chose the curator, which was the easiest boss for me personally. I also went ahead and started upgrading the patches that I really like, specifically the ones where you take less damage, deal more damage, but also re-rolling. At this point in the game, we're also able to talk to New and Anakard to get our final last armor recipe that maybe we'll make, but I'll worry about that later. To get another achievement, I ended up crafting the Ethereum Heart large sword and equipped it and started going back into the treasury halls. The reason being is, remember that guy that was stuck in the glass there? Well, if you swing the sword at him, it's actually strong enough to break the glass and free your friend from there, giving us another achievement. Now, although it's not an achievement yet, I'd assume it's going to be an achievement in the full game, I started expanding my backpack as much as possible because, hey, the more backpack slots you got, the more money you can bring back, right? The problem is, though, turns out this little personal goal of mine was going to cost way more time than I realized. But for now, there's still a backpack achievement that we're still able to get where you can get a couple more slots and just get an achievement for that. But there is still one more row, which I would presume is going to be for the full game. With that being said, we now had every single Steam achievement unlocked, but that still wasn't enough for me. I wanted to unlock every weapon, unlock unlock every decoration, unlock every recipe, and also find and discover every relic. And to do that, we have to still continuously defeat the bosses over and over again. The first thing I did is I went back into the treasury halls to find myself the Heartbeat Hunter recipe. You're able to find this room if you go off the exit of one of the mini boss areas. The next secret recipe I got is down in Aeolia in Zephyr Fields. You're able to take down this little extra zip line and find yourself a little portal. And in here, you're able to get yourself a brand new gun material, the Blow Blaster. And as I'm going on these trips, I'm still going back and still selling all of the best relics I can get. And at this point, I discovered a little trick that you can use to make a lot of money. In fact, a trick that I used to make over 500,000 gold in a single day. But before we get into that, I decided to go ahead and max out as many upgrades as possible. The first thing I wanted to do is upgrade all of my research. Right now in early access, there's only a specific level that you can acquire, but after maxing it out, they tell you that you don't have the materials that you need yet, because I had assumed the material is just not added in early access yet. But now with that, we're able to get much more better, higher ranking relics in our runs. The next thing I upgraded was the patches that I really enjoyed using. This was going to be really helpful whenever we do our runs again, because not only are we going to be taking less damage, but now we're able to reroll as many things as possible to try and unlock all of the other relics that we haven't sold yet. I also went ahead to Miss Scratch and used all of my vouchers to unlock every single furniture for our shop. And here comes my little favorite trick of how I'm making so much money right now. In the treasury halls, or any level in this area, at this point in the game, you should be getting your fair share of legendary and purple relics. But there's really two that are unbelievably broken when used together, and that is the Dream Whistle and the Surprise Disc. Essentially, using these two little relics, you're able to continuously duplicate their effects and stack their rarities over and over again. And with their inherent rarities being so high, you're able to eventually get the maximum value of 999 rarity on these items and continuously keep doing it. And using this optimal setup in this level, you're definitely going to be able to make a lot of money. And so with this being an early access, there's only a limit of the things that we can do, unfortunately. However, like I said, I wanted to at least get all of the achievements in early access, as well as do a couple of other goals like collecting all the weapons and furniture and whatnot. But one of the big things that I wanted to do was to definitely at least leave the game with at least having $1 million gold sale day. And finally, after many runs and maxing out my entire upgrade tree and being in early access, I was finally able to have a day where I sold over $1 million. Oh, finally. It took so long. It took so long. I did it. And now, last but not least, to top it all off, I went ahead and got every furniture, every decoration, every recipe that I could possibly get to finish off my 100% of Moonlighter 2 in early access. Eventually, they're going to release the full game, and with it, a lot more features, but for now, this is as much that I can do. This is as much features as there are in the game right now. But regardless, I had a fantastic time. Once again, thank you so much to Moonlighter 2 for collaborating with me on this video. And if you guys want to check out the game, it's down in the description. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Adrian, guys.